Hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca Arnett, and I am the lead GRC analyst at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. So, a couple of things before we get started. Yes, I understand that I am from Louisiana, and I do sound like I am from Louisiana. So, if during this presentation you're like, I have no idea what this woman just said, fine, put it in Slack. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. With me, I'll have Celia. So, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Celia. I'm GRC analyst, work with Rebecca at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. Thank you for having me here today.
Yes. And so we run what we call the Cyber Shield program at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. And today we're going to be talking about the Phish Fry or the Phishing Rodeos and in being engagement. So we're going to go over a couple of things. Here's the thing. It's going to be a lot of stuff on this slide. Just know that as we're talking about this, we're just going to go through this together. It doesn't necessarily going to go through one by one by one. All right. So some of the things that we're going to be covering today is we're actually going to talk about what is a Phish Fry, and then we're going to talk about how do you brand that to something your employees actually care about, maintaining that brand look and feel by working with different departments, advertising it to leadership, working with other departments on the rules and regulations, what can you and what you can't do, and then using a combination of what we call generalized phishing and public knowledge spear phishing in order to kind of get a good combination for people to see what was happening in the real world. And then having a consistency in prizes that are themed to your event and what your employees want, because that's a big thing. Also having a debrief with your participants as well as messaging, and then employee reactions and discussions, and then proof in the pudding. What actually happened? How do we know that this was successful? And then finally, what were some lessons learned along the way? And then how did it change us for the future? So as we're kind of going through this, we're going to talk about the how we did these things. And at the end, I actually have a document that I'll throw into Slack that actually helps you walk through doing any type of an event, but especially something like a phishing simulation event, to kind of think through how you would do it at your organization. So first, what is the Phish Fry?
All right. So the Phish Fry is a voluntary event where participants receive and are tasked with identifying additional phishing simulations. You may have heard it called different names, such as Phishing Rodeo. But because we are in Louisiana, we decided to go with the name Phish Fry.
Yes. And they're more challenging than regular simulations. Because it's an optional thing, our event, we normally give everybody an enterprise simulation every month, but this one we're able to kind of pit our minds against theirs. And we get to practice being social engineers. We're Rachel Toback for a moment. And yes, so as Celia mentioned, the branding of why did we call it a Phish Fry? So good thing y'all just ate lunch, because we're about to show y'all some very yummy pictures.
All right. Like Rebecca mentioned, our home base is in Louisiana. And here in the South, if you don't know, food is life. Louisiana has deep rooted connections to seafood, and fish fries are just a staple in our state's culture and celebration. So when you hold a fish fry here, you invite all your friends, all your neighbors, all your family, everyone comes together. And so when it came to naming our event, we had to go with that name, Phish Fry.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, for those of you who are kind of going, oh, these are some doctored pictures. These are not AI generated. This is an actual restaurant right down the road from us called Drusilla's. But yeah, we went with the Phish Fry because that's what brings everybody together for a celebration. And we wanted to make this an event and a celebration of fishing, not a punitive effort. All right. So continuing on with branding. So now that we can know that this is the Phish Fry, see, what did we end up having to do next with it?
All right. So over the years with our program, we've learned that branding is very important. If it's done effectively, it can be a determining factor in the success of a program or an event. So branding is more than just slapping a logo on something or giving it a name. We wanted to take a strategic approach to creating a memorable experience that kind of reinforces our brand and identity. So once we decided on the name Phish Fry, we needed a good catchphrase to go along with it. Ultimately, we decided on using the tagline, looking for some bigger fish to fry. Our awareness program is called Cyber Shield, and our program colors are branded green, white, and gray. Working with our graphic design department, we use some of our organization's tertiary colors to round out the look and feel for the branded event. So by using colors and themes that our organization is already familiar with, but altering them slightly with different tones or hues, this can kind of bring interest and awareness while still retaining the recognition of representing the company. We worked with the graphic design team to help keep a consistent look and feel for the organization as well. And that kind of also helps with the psychology of using familiar fonts and colors.
Yep. All right. And then, so now that we know what our look and feel is, and now that we know what our tagline is, we had to start thinking about what is the timeline? How long do we give people to sign up? How long does it take us to do things? And then we ended up going with like a monthly sign up period, a monthly simulation period, and a monthly actual run through of the Phish Fry itself. Sorry, I'm hearing myself giving feedback. Okay. And the reason we did that was because this was our first time to build out something like this. So we knew we needed to give ourselves some time to do this, as well as give our participants additional time. So while we were building out the simulations, they were actually getting additional training. So that allowed them to get a sense of control before the Phish Fry started, as well as giving us a little bit of a buffer period of going, how many people signed up, how many simulations are we going to do, and how do we actually build these out.
And we decided to do a whole month for sign up, the whole month of June, just because that's right smack dab in the middle of summer. So we didn't want anybody to miss out on the opportunity to sign up just because they were on vacation or out, a few weeks. So that's why we did the whole month of June.
Yep. Okay. So then we decided that this is advertising. How do we advertise these different things? How do we get these to people? How do we get them excited about doing this and actually doing something?
All right. So we decided to use a multi-pronged approach on this. We gave our ambassadors advance notice during the Q2 ambassador meeting. We then drafted an announcement with more details about the event for our corporate newsletter. This was the official announcement for our Phish Fry. It kind of went over what the Phish Fry is, when the Phish Fry is, what happens if you click on a Phish Fry simulation, and why you should sign up for the Phish Fry. Next, we held an in-person marketing event where people could stop by and say hello. They could ask questions. They could earn some Cyber Shield swag. Everybody loves free stuff, right? So that's always a good opportunity. This also gave us the opportunity to promote additional upcoming events, like the return of our cybersecurity escape room. After the in-person event, we sent out a communication specifically to our leadership team, encouraging them to have their teams sign up. And we continued to advertise the event in our weekly newsletters. This went on from the last Wednesday in May all through June.
Yep. And then, of course, the big thing is prices. So everybody has something that they like. Your organization may have something that means something to you. Just like Phish Fry meant something for us because of who we are culturally, we had to go with a prize that actually themed into what we were doing and also was something our people would want to have as a memorabilia of this. And so that's some of the prizes that we ended up going with.
So the main prize was a Phish Fry kit, which included a Phish Fry pot and all the ingredients needed for a Phish Fry, like seasoning and batter and all that. Yep. And then, like Rebecca mentioned, we wanted to give them something they wanted. And our organization, they love event T-shirts. So we went with the T-shirt with the 2023 Phish Fry, I survived the Phish Fry, little slogan on there. And that was a big hit with everybody. After that, we had our CISO send out an email to the organization celebrating the Phish Fry results and declaring the winner for the year. And then last but not least, I really like this one. Each participant received a competency email from us at the end of the year that they could add to their performance self-evaluation.
That's a big thing for our people is the ability to explain to their management what they learned. When you deal directly with money, people get excited about it. All right. And then the other aspect that we have to look at is who all we need to work with. And so this is where we really started to work with other departments. And there's a great time to meet with other departments to understand what they're looking at. We met with HR, with legal, in order to understand what they were able to allow us to do, as well as informing them of some things, and gave us a partnership that we didn't have before, where we were able to take the knowledge that we got from them and move it towards the future of other phishing simulations we got. But it ended up giving us these rules of engagement that our participants had to sign, and that they acknowledge it before we started the actual Phish Fry event. And so we have quite a few. I'm just going to put them all on here.
Rebecca likes to say it's not a no holds bar event for us, it's a some holds bar event for us.
Yeah, some of the big things to come out of it was we weren't going to mimic our executive leadership. So we didn't want them to be thinking that there was something coming from the CEO or something that's coming from here, and oh gosh, we have to be very wary of that. So the other one that we also let them know about is there's a good chance I'm going to be stalking you on social media, and we're going to craft simulations based off of that. Yep, and they had to agree to all of those rules. And again, I talked about it earlier, but this kind of gave us that opportunity to give them additional training in July. So every Friday of the week, we released educational opportunities in the form of videos, games, articles, modules, all of those things, just kind of reminding them what social engineering is, red flags to look for, so that on August 1st, they were prepared for these phishing simulations. So, what was our participation? So, when we first started this idea, we had heard about it from somebody else, and they were like, "Oh yeah, my first year I got about 50 people," and we were like, "Oh, we can handle 50 people. Yeah, that's not a big problem." Our workforce at that time was about 3,000 people, and 210 people signed up for it. Six who are contingent workforce members, contract workers, individual contributors, 161 of those. But we were also very surprised 43 ODMS people signed up for this Phish Fry. So that kind of took us back for a moment, because then we had to think about a game plan of how do you fish all of these folks.
That's a lot of people to spearfish.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately, we ended up doing 2 simulations per week. So everybody got a phishing simulation that was sent. It was a generalized phishing simulation, still harder than most, but it was generalized. But then we had a spear phishing simulation based on what division they were on, they were in, department, type of employee that they are. You can kind of see here we had to kind of label it for ourselves to go, okay, week 1, who are we sending this to? Week 2, who are we sending this to? Week 3, week 4, and that kind of helped us build it out to say, okay, thinking through who do you send it to, when do you send it to them, and building out a calendar. It was one of the lessons learned that we really had to take into account for this year. Phish Fry was because I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be sending them a simulation almost every day. So we actually had to start putting it in a calendar format so that we were able to keep track of what email was going out when. So what were some of our results? We were very excited about our results. Click rate is not as high, which is not surprising. But what really got us excited and what we were really hoping for was that report rate. Our report rate ended up being over 61% across the board, and they got 8 opportunities. So you can kind of see the report count. So 8 people for the 8 reports, we had 22 people that reported every time. It was about 10% of the population, but very few only reported 1 or 2 times. It was 6 reports, 7 reports, 8 reports. They were reporting. They were figuring them out and reporting them. And that was the big thing for us, was having that opportunity to understand what some of these outcomes came from this. So it was things like a more aware workforce around what phishing is, understanding that there's certain things that we knew were triggering them, and it allowed us to do categorized phishing simulations for future development. We were able to take some of this information and make what we call specialized groups, role-based, division-based, and start giving them specific phishing simulations based off of what we saw with that interaction. We also got triggers on the interaction with the simulations for the generalized workforce. It also allowed us to understand how long we should be checking on these things. Was what we found was during the phishing simulation was originally we were checking about for 3 days after we sent the simulation, but with people being on vacation, with other things happening, we were having people who are phishing it 5 or 6 days later. And so that ultimately changed how we just do our enterprise phishing, as now it's a 5-day look through instead of a 3-day look through, because we figured out that that's something that was desperately needed in order to get a full depth and breadth of what people are actually clicking on and interacting with. And then, of course, potential ambassadors. If you have a champion program at your organization, those ambassadors, they're the ones that are wanting to do things and get out there. And so that's where we were able to take some of this information too and push the ambassadors like, hey, we've noticed that you're not part of the ambassador program. Do you want to be? This is what we do, and this is what you get to come. This is what you get out of it. So that was another outcome we were able to act on from there, which I think brought us up to about 150 ambassadors at the end of the year.
Right, because we noticed some of the top reporters were not ambassadors. So we were able to extend an invite to those people.
Yep. So metrics, because I know that that's always what we have to give our boss to explain what's happening. And this is what we found very interesting. And if you look all the way from January of 2023, our phishing reporting rate it's not terrible, but it's not great. It wasn't where we wanted it to be. But starting in that June timeframe, when we really started to advertise that the Phish Fry was coming, and then in July and August, and by the way, this report metric does not take the Phish Fry into account. This is just reporting on enterprise phishing simulations. But you see that there's this massive jump, and it stayed higher. So we went from an average of 600 reports per simulation to over 1,000 per simulation, which was a massive thing. And then it kept going. That was what we wanted, and it was what really has surprised us, is just how long it has kept going, because once they started talking about it, they kept talking about it. And that was the big thing, was our people started talking to each other about this. Even if they weren't part of the Phish Fry, they were talking about the email that they got. They were talking about the email that got them. They talked about the emails that they didn't get. And that created a buzz throughout the whole organization. So not just those 210 people from the Phish Fry started to report. Now we were looking at a massive jump of our whole organization reporting these simulations, because their friends and the ambassadors are talking about this on a regular basis. And that also allowed us to understand where we were on the SANS phishing awareness program. Ultimately, we were wanting to get to that tier 4, tier 5. And what we found was that our people were already on that edge of tier 3 and going into tier 4, and that has allowed us for this year to stay around that tier 4, tier 5. We're tier 5ing phishing simulations to our specialized groups. We're tier 4ing phishing simulations to the enterprise, and gave us something we were able to explain to management of, like, why is this working? How do we know this is working? And that's been a big thing too, was we were able to explain that to all of them. And of course, where are we today? Because we don't want to make it too long, but where are we today? So some of the things that we looked at were like, how do we change this? Well, one of the things, I really liked brighter colors. As you can tell, I'm a very colorful person. So we decided to go with some happier colors. We still have that blue, that green, that white, that gray, but now it is in a lighter blue with a darker blue. We also added a QR code for them to sign up, so they could go anywhere in the building and just sign up, and they wouldn't have to worry about going to their computer to do so. We also did 2 taglines this year. So it's time to bait the hook was in May and June, and in July, it's now casting the line. We're ready for this Phish Fry. Of course, one of the other things that we know is that our people love backgrounds because we are a hybrid company. So we now have for them at the end of August, they'll get an I Survived the 2024 Phish Fry as their team background to keep the buzzwords going. And then, of course, our people are completely feral over T-shirts, and so that is our other one that they'll get. Of course, we're going to keep our still the same thing. They're going to get a big fish fry pot because that of course is very important to them, and then they will also receive their information from Cyber Shield, letting them know what they've gained from this, and also a thing from our CISO thanking them for surviving the fish fry and for being a part of it and naming the winner. So they still get the things that are important to them. It's just going to be branded just a little bit different. So those are some of the things that we've changed for today. I do want to let y'all know that today was our first day of this year's Phish Fry. We have a report rate of 50% already. It was sent out this morning, and so we're excited to see that that has kept going and that they're still looking at these phishing simulations and getting their phishing right. Does anybody have any questions?
Becca and Celia, thank you very much for that presentation. That was very interesting. Lots of conversation on it, and I love how you use the concept of where your culture is as opposed to your company. Right, a lot of times people are looking at their company and trying to come up with themes and ideas regarding the company. But we're in Louisiana. This is our environment. This is what we're going to use. That's great. So a couple of questions. First, on that slide where you mentioned the different phishing emails that you send out, we're asking what is ODMS? It's like third
officers,
or
directors. Down. Yeah, it's officers, directors, managers, and supervisors.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So you're talking anywhere from executive vice presidents all the way down to a supervisor.
And you're basically mimicking them and sending out to their employees?
No, those were the ones who signed up for the Phish Fry. We had executive vice presidents and SVPs and managers and supervisors signing up to participate in the Phish Fry.
So that was like specifically for them. That's great. Super. Another question: did you match the fish to the NIST fish scale for metrics and complexity?
No, actually, that is one of the things that I was talking to somebody about earlier. That's the next step is I want to take that. We currently use our organization uses KnowBe4, so we use theirs, and then now I'm using SANS, and I want to compare it against NIST and create a nice little metrics package.
Oh, super. Excellent. There's also a question about sharing the slide deck, but I believe all the slide decks throughout this entire summit are going to be shared on the SANS site after.
I'll also have, and I made for everybody, and I'll put it in Slack a little bit later. I also have a PDF of pretty much, it's a think through of the whole event of like, what are your OKRs? What are your objectives, key results? Who do you need to talk to? When do you need to do this? So you can actually build out your own simulation based off of what your company cares about.
You made us all a checklist. I love it. That is awesome. Another question: with multiple people reporting all the phishing emails, how did you determine a winner, or did they all win?
So they didn't all win, but we did a random drawing. We based it off of those who did not fall for any simulations. They got to be the grand prize winner, but everybody received a prize. So everybody received the T-shirt, everybody received the notifications, everybody received all of those things. The Phish Fry winner was one person that we drew from a hat.
Oh, understood.
Anybody who didn't fall for a simulation and reported. Did we do that too, Rebecca?
Yes.
Yeah. We reported them all and did not fall for any. And then we did a random drawing of those individuals.
That makes sense because it's not just not falling for it, it's also doing the right behavior, which is reporting the fish. Fantastic. Okay. There's two questions here in one. What tool did you use for phishing campaigns, which I think you just answered? And then was there any training provided on how to use the reporting button specifically before the whole event?
Yes. So yeah, we use KnowBe4 as our phishing simulation tool, but these fishing, a lot of these fishes came straight from the brain of Celia and myself, and we had a third member at that time, Jamie, who's retired. And so we use that tool in order to send them out, but a lot of them just come from straight up us social engineering, going on LinkedIn and Facebook and finding information about people and then putting them together and just sending it out that way. And yes, part of what they learn is the fish alert button, and we continuously talk about how to report, and so that's all part of it.
I believe one of the additional training emails was just a refresher on where the fish alert button is, and if you have any questions, like if you're missing your fish alert button, to please let us know. That was one of the very first training emails that went out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. Great. Next question is asked about your ambassador program. Is it open to all employees? And then they're wondering how your program is structured and how it was implemented.
Yes, so our ambassador program is open to all employees, and how it's structured, so how we started it was, we started it way back as even before the pandemic. So we started this, I believe it was 2018 is when we started the Cyber Shield Ambassador program, and it was first it was just a combination of cybersecurity, going to leadership meetings and going to other meetings and having IT involved and going, hey, this is a program we're starting. But over time, it's kind of turned into this word of mouth where ambassadors are actually now recruiting other ambassadors, and we keep up to date with them through we use Microsoft Teams. So we have a chat channel with them. They have their own SharePoint site in which they can get information from us, and then they get, I'm going to call it updated. We call it the notes. So everybody gets a newsletter on Wednesday. They get the newsletter on Monday, so that they have talking points for their folks whenever Wednesday's newsletter comes out.
Our ambassadors are those individuals that kind of like to be more in the know. They get advanced notification of upcoming events or certain technical talks we may be having. We have ambassadors in all our different departments, so they are kind of our mouthpiece for their team and their department.
And one of the questions that we asked them last year was, what do y'all want? And their whole thing was recognition. They want to be recognized by management, by others, that they are doing this extra thing that's not part of their job duties on a daily basis. So that's why they now have the Cyber Shield ambassador background, which we're rocking. And they also, we label an ambassador of the month, and a communication goes out to management letting them know who our ambassador of the month is, what they do, and why they are the ambassador of the month. And then another communication is sent to the whole entire company, letting them know about it and their picture. We interview them, and so that's a very big thing. And at the end of the year, we also send out a letter to them letting them know how much training they've taken, how many phishing simulations they did, what all they did for that year, and how it helped them grow in all of our competency areas that they get paid to be competent in.
So yeah, that letter then they can directly attach to their self-evaluation performance review.
It's great. I've heard of like an ambassador of the year program, but breaking it into a monthly basis is it's got to be really interesting as well. Is there a lot of upkeep in that and management of that?
No.
Okay, cool. Let me go back. I'll go back to the Slack. So other than the Phish Fry, how often do you fish all users?
All users get fished on a monthly basis. And as of October of last year, we have specialized groups that get an additional fish on a monthly basis. So you receive at least one, if not 2 or 3 fishes per month.
Wow.
And we group them by, not necessarily by a department, but we have like IT as a group, or HR as a group, financial, which includes multiple departments. And then we will send out spear phishing emails that are crafted to, entice somebody that may work with finance. So BEC email, that sort of stuff.
Understood. That makes complete sense. Cool. And then always the common question when it comes to phishing simulations is, how do you deal with repeat offenders?
So we have what we call additional training model, where if you click on so many within a 6-month period, you get this phishing simulation training that you should take. We decided not to go with punitive because it doesn't work. It doesn't help people. But instead, cybersecurity will know if somebody is an offender, and if it gets really, we've not really had anybody that has been a really horrible offender. But if it ever came to that, then our CISO will go talk to them, or our directors will go talk to them and see what's going on. Why is this happening? We did have something like that happen, but it turned out to be something in a system that was causing Microsoft to open up every one of their emails. So we were afraid for a moment that we had a repeat offender, but it was a system issue.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. And then how many people did you have sign up in 2024?
So 2024, we have 240 participants. So I sent out 240 emails this morning.
Wow. Okay. And that's
for an organization of 3,000
okay. All right.
people.
Great.
So 240 out of the 3,000 folks signed up. And again, we actually have people. So the way that our organization is structured is we do a lot of things in-house. Like a lot of our customer service department is in-house, our print shop is in-house, and we have people that are part of customer service, that are part of facilities, that are also participating in this. So it is not just like only certain departments or certain areas are participating in this Phish Fry. It is across the board. I believe we looked at it was 14 different areas that are currently participating in these types of events.